few weeks ago, I was at dinner with Jidenna, who's been a friend of mine for some time, and told him about it, and he was very supportive and excited to participate. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you.
And so just to introduce who he is, he's a Grammy-nominated artist. Whose music has been very influential and ranges from Afrobeats to funk to hip hop, and a lot of people in this room love and admire him, as do I. So, yeah, can we give it up for Jidenna? Graciously agreed to be here with me and indulge in my questions.
Most people don't come up with a concept and then have you on stage for that within 2 weeks. So shout out to Nozi for doing this. Very few people can do and pull that off. I also think it's hilarious when people announce me and other artists as Grammy nominated. It's like no other field where almost is celebrated. Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest almost got her Bachelor's of Science. Our next guest needs no introduction. You know him well. He was engaged and almost got married 3 times. There's no other field. I really don't like that, but thank you for sharing that I almost got there and failed miserably. Jesus.
Is nominated.
My imposter syndrome lights up when I hear nominated.
Yeah.
I can't do it, man. I give my dad in his grave. Where are the other 2 points? But why did you not win? But why did you not? You still did not win. Anyway, how are y'all? Good to see y'all. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
I haven't been wanting to be out in the limelight, so thank y'all so much. This is, baby steps. I'm still in the pandemic. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm still in it. So thank you, Nozi. Appreciate you.
Yes. So I wanted this to feel intimate and informal. So hence blankets and just get cozy. We're gonna deep dive and start from the tippy top. We always cut to the long story short, which is why I called it long story long, because we're taking the long way around to unpack your journey to where you are now and where you hope to be.
Okay.
And the twists and turns and the intricacies of that. So, with that being said, a lot of people don't know this about you. I actually recently myself uncovered a bit of this information. But before you were performing, in high school you were part of a rap group.
Yes.
And you had an interest as well, or you were participating in tutoring from the time you were 11, and proceeded to teach. So that's kind of where I want to start. Let's take it back to high school and your tutoring journey and how you started teaching and why that's what you did, and then how that bled into your music space. It's a very broad question, but take it where you want.
I think the funniest thing is I look at myself now, and this is called Long Story Long. I feel like that's the story of my life, because I wanted to be a rapper and a basketball player, at the same time. My dream was, I'm a rap. I had hella chains in high school. I used to sell chains. I got them on Canal Street, New York. I also got them in Boston, downtown Crossing. That was my hustle. So I would sell chains usually to white boys in the suburbs who were trying to figure out what was cool in the hood. And I was in between both areas. So I would go to the hood, see what was popping, go to Chinatown, get the chain, go sell it to a white boy for $100 more than it was worth. And then I would buy myself clothes, go to school and be a rapper with all my little chains. And I thought wow, one day MTVU which was like the university MTV, was gonna follow me around at school when I'm at Harvard, and I'm just gonna be the man. That was my dream. And now I look at like where I went, I took a total detour and didn't quite get there.
So what birthed that dream? Like, where did your desire to
being a black man in America? What do you mean? Like that was it probably was a combination of my neighborhood. I lived in at the time in Milton, which is like on the border of Mattapan and Milton in Boston, and that's what all of us wanted to do. I remember this kid, Black Casper, when I was 10 years old. He heard my poem and he was like, "Bro, I don't know no rich poets, bro. Like, how you gonna make money being a poet? You need to rap." And that's when I started rapping.
Okay.
Everybody I knew wanted to be a basketball player, drug dealer, baller. Even in private school, which I went to for high school, we still wanted to be that. So I think it was that. And then like identity-wise, growing up with a European American, or what you guys would call white American mother, Nigerian father, black Nigerian. I gotta quantify that because it's different than being like black and white when your parents from Alabama. My dad's from Nigeria, my mom from Wisconsin. Culturally, it matters more than just race when we talk about mixed heritages. So I think that I wanted to make sure that my identity was certified, to be honest. And that's why I was like, man, I gotta be a rapper and basketball player. I gotta really certify this shit. They were saying I'm too African, I'm not black enough, I'm not white enough, I'm not hood enough, I'm going to prep school like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like, I gotta certify myself and be the man. And so that's why I started a rap group.
So how did you go about navigating your not enoughness?
I'm still navigating that. I mean it. When I have severe imposter syndrome, I don't believe that what I've done so far is 1% of what I'm capable of. So I'm still figuring that out. At the time, I navigated everything by creating my own culture. So let me create my own rap group. The school didn't have an African Student Association. I created Milton Academy's first ever African Student Alliance. I created a magazine for creatives like myself. I've always created a place where I could feel like I fit in, because I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere else.
Okay. And how did you, what were the obstacles you faced taking up that space? Like, how did you navigate taking up that space?
The first and final obstacle is self-doubt. And the way I navigated it then was just, I drew my world. Like, I was a visual artist before I was a musician. So I would draw out how I would look every year. I still do that to this day. I drew out what like my rap group looked like. I drew out what I would be. And then just staring at that page over and over. Nowadays we call them vision boards. But I thought I had invented this shit. I'm a cocky son of a bitch sometimes. And I thought, like, just by looking at that over and over and telling people, yo, I'm finna be this. I mean, my family did not believe, they supported me, but they did not necessarily believe I'll be where I am. So I just had to keep with repetition. Repetition is the mother of learning. You know what I mean? You just repeat something, it happens in the universe.
Okay. So you had the vision to be a rapper and what you were going to achieve, and you started up taking up space by creating your own space, creating your own vision. But that was also coupled with you, I mean, that segues really well into you creating your own course at university. So you went to uni, you studied, remind me what you studied in?
Well, I went in for an electrical engineering major, but it was music and electrical engineering. So it was music, science, and technology. Like this microphone, for example. This is what we built in class. We actually built mics. We built laser harps that were invisible. The strings were invisible. It was really cool. but I just wanted to use the mic. I wanted to use the instrument. So halfway through, I switched my major and created my own major called ritual art.
Okay, and how did you go about doing that?
Okay, all right, this is where we are, okay. All right, we're gonna dig in.
We're digging.
And I'm gonna circle back to what your first question was, which is like, how did I get into education? Mm-hmm. My father was a founding professor of one of Nigeria's first tech universities. My mom was a teacher, an English teacher. She taught other subjects as well in Nigeria and in the US. So I came from an educated background. We didn't have money growing up, but I was Nigerian, and that was probably my primary privilege, to be 100%, because education was not just encouraged, it's enforced. I didn't know that there were other schools other than Harvard, MIT, Yale, Wellesley College, and whatever others, UPenn, that my siblings went to that were older. I literally didn't know like there were other schools. So that became my mindset, like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go to one of those schools. Education was always something that you share. So I tutored from a very early age. When I got into college though, man, I was smoking weed. I'm trying to be a rapper, dog. Kanye West talking about college dropout and graduation. I ain't trying to do this shit. So I wanted to dip. Halfway through, I was suicidal. I was rock bottom. Anybody who's been rock bottom, which is probably all of you, knows there's a basement below rock bottom. That's where I was at. And anybody who's on cloud 9 right now knows there's an attic above cloud 9. Such is life, and I was in that rock bottom state. In the middle of that, I remember I went through a period where I was like, man, I'm gonna jump off this balcony. I lived on graduate housing, because I thought I was fresh. I was an undergrad, but I got this dope ass apartment. I was gonna jump off that balcony. And I also had, my friend had lent me this gun. I was gonna take my life like that. He didn't know. So that's where I was at. Then, right in the middle of the thought that nobody in the world understands me, or the closest person is 3,000 miles away, I'm alone. Right when I thought that thought, the next thought was, God actually understands you, and God is here. And I hadn't really been on my spiritual game at all, but at that moment, as soon as that thought came to my head, my arms outstretched, my eyes went back in my head. I don't remember what happened, but I felt like I was in a black body of water, and I was rising in water. I felt like I was dying. And so I realized that, and I begged whatever it was, spirit, God, just anything, life, please let me go. I'm not done. I'm so sorry I wasn't doing my due deed and my due diligence. Please, please bring me down. And after begging for what felt like eternity, I was back into my body. My white tee was a Pro Club white tee. I'll never forget. I got it at the swap meet here. It was drenched with my tears in reality, but on a metaphysical plane, it felt like it was drenched with water that I was in, that black abyss that I was in. Long story short, my friends came in, they found me like speaking in tongues if you're Christian. You laughing at long story short. All right, long story long, pardon me. I woke up the next day and I felt like the Buddha, baby. I was blissful. And I started telling everybody about God, which at Stanford at the time was not like the coolest thing. You know what I mean? Not that people didn't believe, but it wasn't what I did. I was the cool political rapper, cocky, pretty boy, thug wannabe kid on campus. I was trying to be that. All of a sudden my ego was gone, and all I had was like my tunic, my beard grew all of a sudden within weeks. And it was miraculous. I went from the Puerto Rican chin strap and little Dominican mustache to like a man.
Not
behold, a man.
Not miraculous.
And that experience sent me out of class. I couldn't focus. All I wanted to talk about was spiritual things. So I had my family did what every Nigerian family does when their little kid is acting up. They sent me back home to Nigeria.
So, what year were you in?
I just finished sophomore year. And so I was halfway through. I went to Nigeria. I went to like revisit where Fela was walking, and it was there, like thinking about Fela Kuti, that I was like, yo, I know what I want to do. I want to go back and I want to study rituals and ceremonies. I want to figure out what happened to me, because nobody can explain it. Not Christianity, not Islam, not Buddhism. I was a monk for a year with all these religions. I was just delving into the temples. And I went back like, I'm gonna make a major that suits me. You can't let college or school work you. You know, you make it work for you. Yeah, so that's what made me create my own major. Thanks.
That was wholesome. Thank you. Okay, so you came back from Nigeria and you created your own major. Was the school just like, yeah, great, go for it? Yeah, just do your thing.
Nah, not at all.
How did you navigate building the curriculum, what it should encompass? Who did you teach it to? What pushback did you get? How did you navigate that pushback? I know that's a lot of questions, but
it's
all encompassing.
When you set out, like if we as a group were to pick a point, I used to do this when I was a kid. I would pick a point in Boston. Like I would just point one way, I'd spin around and point in a direction, and then I would say, I'm gonna go there.
Yeah.
That's it. That was the whole trick. I'm gonna go there. So if we as a group were like, yo, we are all going to go there to that white building. Y'all see that back there? Mm-hmm. We're gonna go there. Without phones, without GPS. Could we do it? We could, because you picked your point and your destination, and now you just have to figure out as you go how to get there. That's how everything is in this electromagnetic field. I thought like, man, I want to take these courses, and so I went to a department. I figured out that to get your own major, you had to submit it to a department head, and they had to certify. You had to get a certain amount of signatures from a professor, or for the professors in the staff. And so I put together a course load that seemed right to me. I studied. I looked at ritual studies, which was a major I found out on Google that some other people had done, especially this woman named Keela Deal, Professor Keela Deal. I took her course load, which included music theory, religious studies, neuroscience, physiology, a whole mixture of sociology, psychology, and then I kind of created that major at Stanford, and then submitted it to a bunch of departments until somebody said yes.
Dope.
But I did it for my sanity. I wasn't gonna make it.
Right.
That's like the best part. That's the greatest thing about being off and on the edge. You're not gonna make it. So you either gonna win big or you're gonna fail forever. And that kind of stake, that's the stakes that I've always put on myself. It's not a great thing. I'm not like, don't follow this to a T, but it'll get you somewhere.
I feel that.
Yeah, you're in it, that resonates. I had gone left. I was painting my face almost every week with my crew. We were creating our own indigenous society in East Palo Alto, California, and Oakland. And it was artsy, it was ritual based, it was dope, but it wasn't something that was commercially viable. And I could not make money doing that. It was weird. So
how were you making money?
I was an after-school instructor. I taught music production to kids around the way, but I primarily wanted to focus on young girls who were in production, because I've been in so many studios to this day that block access for women to get in front of the computer. I can't stand seeing men literally be like, it's cute when a woman asks like, what are you doing right there? And they be like, what am I doing? I mean, why don't you go sing that R&B hook right there, you know what I'm saying? I hated seeing that shit. That's what it is. I hate that. So I wanted to teach young girls in particular how to produce and how to engineer. So I was in a program called Mural and Arts Project in the Bay. And that's how I made my money.
Okay. So then you were making your money, and how were you navigating trying to get ahead in your music? And at this point you're in Oakland, yeah?
Yeah, so after school.
How old are you, like?
I am
22.
I'm 22.
Okay.
And I watched this interview with this dude named Sun Ra. He's a jazz legend. He's really Afrofuturism before people knew what that was. And he believed like he was brought down here from aliens. He was really inspiring to me because he said one thing in an interview. He said, I couldn't pay everybody, but I could house everybody. And I made them all dress up. He didn't say I made them. He said it in like some cult leader fashion that doesn't sound, but I'm gonna talk straight. He made them dress like him. And I'll never forget that. So I thought, man, if we can pool our money together, we can all be housed in the same place. We could build a culture, build a tribe. And tribes seem to always work. So we put our money together and we started a Kickstarter before Kickstarter existed. We raised our money and we got this big ass Oakland mansion off High Street, which is like the border of like east side of Oakland, a tough ass hood, and then like the cooler, more nicer, gentrified part. So we got that house, moved in there, had a little bit of funds. My homie got in a car accident. He used all that money to support us. It was about 100K. Shout out to Kalonji and Zinga. Thank you, brother. I wouldn't be here without you. And we set on our path to record a lot of songs, and in hopes that when we released them, we would be famous.
So who encompassed the we at the time? Because you went from a time where you felt very alone, very isolated, very ostracized from the environment that you were in, to finding some semblance of community that was moving through life with you.
It's a good question.
So who were these people? Where did you find them? How did you connect with them? And clearly there was a collaborative effort into doing this thing called life together. Mm-hmm. And how did you find each other in the world?
When you're in the basement below rock bottom, there's a few people that are willing to be in the house with you. They may not be in the basement with you. Somebody might live on the top floor, but they're not afraid of you being in the basement. They're not like, oh man, avoid the unlucky and unhappy. I read that in 48 Laws of Power. They say, you know what? You just in the basement, bro. I'm gonna come down and see you. The people that I built with were the people that were okay with me being so far left, and they embraced me. And that group was called Fear and Fancy. It was a collective that we named after a professor of mine who was from Cuba, who once said he's like, the essence of all black art globally, the essence of all black art is fear and fancy. We are always giving a little bit of fear and a little bit of fancy. He's like, even you guys in hip hop, he's like, look at you guys. You guys wear the grills. It's fearful. It's scary, but it's fancy. So we named our group Fear and Fancy.
And when you guys just found each other in class or roaming around campus?
Most of us were in school together, yeah. One person was in my rap group from high school. He went to UPenn, where I used to go like during our spring break to be a hoe. It was a great time, man. If I could do college again, I would do more drugs, more sex, more, yeah. It's true. You should too. Serious. So I went to UPenn, saw him, connected, and then he joined Fear and Fancy. And we used to host these big events called Masquerade Ball. And that was when I was painting my face, and we thought that I'm gonna do what you want. I'm gonna go. This is why we created Masquerade Ball. I was in school in the Bay Area. Before Bay Area was what you know it to be now. It's all this tech giant now. I was there when that shit was happening. Social media was being founded. I was one of the first schools that received Facebook. The first /facebook.com/any name was my name. I was a guinea pig used. I mean this. Well, fuck it. I was a guinea pig. I was. They brought me in this room with all these cameras because one of my friends worked at Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. I used to get free food by going to the cafeteria at Facebook. He's like, yeah, bro, I think they want you to do this thing. They want to start the artist page and they want to give you facebook.com/Jidenna. And so I went into this room, there's cameras everywhere and they're observing me navigate Facebook. The irony of it is then and now, I've never been the biggest social media person. So they got pretty bored of me and went to somebody else. But at that time, I was watching people interact with Facebook and other like little apps, and I was afraid of what was to come. And I was afraid of intimacy evaporating. And I wanted to create something that was anti-social media in general. It was anti-Facebook. And so what I wanted to do was create a place that people stared at your face, and staring was legal and encouraged. So I created a masquerade ball where everybody painted their face and you could look at somebody for the beauty that was in your face instead of hiding. So you could be attracted to somebody, but not necessarily romantically, just because they were interesting and that you didn't go through a screen to get to them. So I made the Afro Masquerade Ball, is what it was originally founded as. And we did that 3 years in a row. The second year, we were looking for an artist to join me on stage. And we scoured MySpace for somebody weird and interesting and left. And we saw this woman named Monet. And her first name was Janelle Monet. She was wearing a white and black glasses and wearing a tux and had a pompadour. And was both a small person but larger than life in the way Prince was. And we said it's her. So we just gotta get her out here because she looked like she big time. So we created a false sense of demand for Janelle Monáe. Nobody really knew her outside of the Atlanta region at the time. I went on every door, every dorm where black people were, and I said, hey, have you heard of Janelle Monáe? And they're like, no. I'm like, yo, she the firest, most bombest person you ever gonna meet. She's dope. You should vote for her to come to Stanford and tell Stanford Concert Network that she should come.
Did you know her?
No.
You didn't know her?
No. Not yet. So we created that false sense of demand. We literally went door to door. And then I had a friend at Stanford Concert Network. And I called him. I said, look, you really got to push this through to me. And can you make the deal in her contract such that she has to perform at Stanford and do this extra performance called Masquerade Ball in Oakland. And we were successful, and that's how I met Janelle Monáe in Wonderland.
So Janelle comes, and then what? What happened?
Yo, this is how I met Janelle. She gonna hate me for telling the story. But you gotta understand, we're doing a masquerade ball in Oakland, California. Everybody's faces are painted. I have this crown that's a bunch of feathers from, I believe it was like a Ugandan chief hat or something. And I got that, you know, I'm wearing like knickers. I got like this Ethiopian, it was a hodgepodge of like Afrofuturism. It was a mess. I thought this shit was fly.
I wish I had a reference screen.
Oh man, I mean, I could find that shit. And my face was painted red and black. So she's entering into a world where people like that are walking around. And there were Polynesian people, Native American people, indigenous people from different parts of the world. We all there, Mexican, black. And when I saw her, she was hot. There was a door for her green room. It wasn't a real green room, because you know how it is when you're figuring shit out. And she was literally like standing behind the door when I walked in. And I'm like, oh, she's hiding from me. And I thought to myself, I would do the same shit if I was about to go on stage. She thought I didn't see her. So I pretended that I didn't see her. She has no idea. Sorry, Janelle. You have no idea when I saw you behind that door. After that moment, and when I saw her on stage, she actually went on before me. My God. She electrified everybody. She electrified me. I started trying to do her dance moves after I had seen her. I was trying to do the James Brown shit that she was doing. And after the Masquerade Ball, we talked a little bit, and I said, yo, y'all should come through to Oakland, come through to our spot. They came by to San Francisco to do a show like a few months later. Came by to Oakland, and they were like, yo, this is just like our house in Atlanta. You should come to Atlanta.
Wait, where were you now? I thought you were in Oakland.
Yeah, I was in Oakland, and I was telling them to come to the house, though.
Okay.
We were at a venue. So I love that you did that and making sure. And then they said, come by to Atlanta. So maybe a year or so later, I went to Atlanta. Sure enough, their house was like the Atlanta version of what we did on the West Coast. Very like creative, collective, kooky, clocks everywhere. They had grass on the floor.
Like actual clocks?
Yeah, actual clocks. The Janelle and Wonderland's house in Atlanta has probably like 100 clocks when you walk in. And then there's grass on the floor instead of a carpet. The whole basement is grass. I remember seeing that. And then like Janelle's bedroom has like a huge, these oversized pots, flower pots that are about like this big. So I saw this place, I'm like, man, this feels like home. From then on, we were just friends, like kindred spirits, cousins, the whole Wonderland, the whole Fear and Fancy, and we've been like that for well over a decade.
Dope, dope. So where were you in your musical journey at this point?
Broke.
Yeah.
I was still trying to start this like alternative rap group with Fear and Fancy. And that wasn't panning out. And my father, in the middle of like working on our album, my father passed away. And it was sudden, it was immediate. And I remember getting that call and just weeping. I was teaching at a school. I get the call, I see 9 missed calls from everybody. I'm like, damn, somebody passed. And all I did was scan the missed calls to see who didn't call me. And I knew it was my father. He was a warm and hot spirit, so he was always like reminding me that I needed to keep in touch with family. He passed, and I went back to Nigeria again. This time was we'll probably dig in because you're gonna make me. But it was that point that I knew I had to change my approach drastically. I'll stop there and figure out where you're going next. You want me to keep going? All right. The day my father passed, I went to go get a 24 pack of Heineken beer. And I put on one of my favorite albums, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah. You know that, Sean. Heineken was my father's favorite beer. And that Pink Floyd album was the album that I studied to learn music theory, because I'm untrained, but I studied that and rock, and late 60s rock. When I went home, our village was experiencing the highest kidnapping rate that it had ever experienced. And so in order to bury my father appropriately and safely, we had to figure out a plan, and it took months. And mind you, his body is in Lagos, in some air conditioner, freezer, whatever they have, but I didn't trust that shit in Lagos. So I was like, man, that's a hot ass place to be having somebody in the freezer. So I told my family, we gotta go ahead and do this. We gotta figure it out. So I cut all my hair off, which I used to have dreadlocks at the time. I cut it off, went bald. I was trying to somewhat blend in so that, because dreadlocks at the time was not like what Burna Boy wore. It was the sign of poverty or a witch doctor deep in the village. So I cut it off, Cool, went with my sisters, buried my father. I came back ferocious. I knew it was time to move different. I became a solo artist, less afraid to leave, because my father, before he passed in his last conversation, said, "You are not a man until your father dies. A man that does not question what happened to his father, what happened to his father will surely happen to him." And that stuck with me. In the last conversation I asked my father, I said, "Dad, why did you not make it? Why did I not grow up a billionaire's son? You, Dad, you created the first African PC that was commercially produced. Why weren't you the black Steve Jobs or Bill Gates? Why you got an EBT card? Why you live in Section 8 housing? Why is my mom working her job and all these other jobs to make it happen?" And he brought me through his life story. And I could tell in him sharing the story that it was when he was not afraid to lead that he was most successful. And that's how he achieved his success. And when he was afraid to lead or half-stepped it, he failed. So I knew when he passed that I could no longer half-step. I moved to New York City, which my sister Catherine had always told me I need to be in, and I'd been visiting since I was a kid. I moved to New Jersey with my other sister Nneka, and then I moved to Brooklyn, East Flatbush with Catherine. And I went between the two houses until I took over Catherine's house. Once I was in there, I remember Sun Ra again. Damn, if I could just house all my friends, then we good. And I told everybody in California, yeah, I hold. I know you're not gonna be able to use this. Interesting note, that's the sound of Fela Kuti's music, if you ever listen to Fela. One thing I learned in my year off is that he studied horn arrangements in London, but he also studied horn arrangements in Lagos because of traffic, and that's why he has them big sounding horns. So I moved to East Flatbush, New York, and I knew that I had to house people again. And so I asked again all my friends, "Are y'all down to move to Brooklyn in the same house together and take another stab at this music thing?" And sure enough, everybody moved in, and I started it again. But this time I was a little bit wiser and sharper, and I had a new psychological plan. Again, this is morbid, and I'm sorry for this, but this is the truth. I said to myself, if I don't make it in music by the time I'm 30, I'm going off myself. That's the reality.
High stakes.
High stakes.
Okay. So you came back to New York, and what was different in your approach? What was the new tactic to approaching this music thing? And at this time, were you still teaching? How were you supporting yourself?
Good question. My tactic was branding. I had left that out the whole time. I didn't realize what branding was. It was a sexy thing to say, but I didn't realize how to do it. So I learned how to brand myself. I read a book called Brand Like a Rock Star. I recommend it to anybody. I recommended it before, I'll recommend it till I pass. It was the book that helped me understand how to cut through a market. I read that book and I realized I had to pick a uniform to roll in. And I was broke, so I would be at thrift shops, and I looked around thrift shops and was like, man, the main thing that I see in thrift shops that's easy to buy is a suit. My father used to wear suits. My father used to walk with a cane because he was disabled. Maybe I'll just put that shit on and it'll feel like I'm repping him, but also it's affordable. And I know these African tailors, I can bargain with them Calm down now, please, or last price, please, I beg. Like, I know how to do this, so let me just do that. I was able to make suits for like sometimes as low as $20, $50. I was wearing that to my job. My job at the time was an in-school teacher. There was a program called Fresh Prep, at which I was a teaching artist, where you're supposed to use hip hop to teach integrated algebra, biology, English, and US and global history. So first year, I finally got like this job. I applied on idealist.org. I got it on my birthday. I'm in New York. I'm finally making like what I think is a lot of money. It was like $200 a day. I was so excited. And the second year at that school, or second year teaching, I realized that I could revamp the curriculum. So again, I pitched to the executive director. I said, look, this is some old hip hop. This is not what we listen to. I'm only like a few years older than some of these kids who have flunked a million times. They were like 18 to 20 in the schools I was teaching at. Transfer students trying to pass the Regents exam, which some of my New York homies know. It was the exam that you had to pass to get through school. So that program allowed me the opportunity to pitch a robust curriculum, which included modernizing the music. I pitched that I would create more like trap oriented or R&B oriented, or basically music that sounded like the dopest rappers at the time. I didn't know how to do that shit. But because of that program, I was studying Wiz Khalifa, Drake. Sorry for the sound, y'all. That is what it is. Wiz Khalifa, Drake, Cole. I'm trying to remember who else was like in that early to mid 2010s. But any rapper of that time, I was studying Future, and I would make like algebra songs. It was basically schoolhouse rock. It was schoolhouse hip hop basically. It was corny as shit in some ways, but I was making fire ass songs because all the rappers in the school was like, yo, you can actually spit something for me. Yo, Mr. Chief, spit something for me now. And so I would spit like my regular shit, and we would have ciphers in the classroom. I would bar up in Brownsville. I was barring up in South Bronx. I was going, and I was telling them like, yo, I'm gonna do this shit. And they be like, yeah, we gonna see. I'm like, nah. I'm gonna do, I don't know about you, but this is my day job, it ain't my last job. I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna see you. So don't act like don't think just cause you in the school and you see me in my little teacher outfit that I won't outdo you. And I did it in the classroom. And the hardest thing was teaching kids who are at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. coming to school to learn about the feudal system. They don't wanna hear about Genghis Khan. So I had to relay it and figure out how to communicate. I wasn't a great communicator because I'm shy and I'm an introvert at my heart. So I had to learn how to speak to kids who were not interested, and relay. And that's, I think, where I learned the skill of charisma, not the talent. I don't think it's a talent. It's a skill that you learn. Charisma is the ability to create intimacy with strangers.
Ooh, charisma is the ability to create intimacy with strangers.
Yes.
Write it down, guys. That's a bar. Dope. Okay. Okay.
I got a term for you. I got a segue. So you let me know. I'm ready.
Go.
It's short. Trust me.
Okay, go.
It's long.
Go.
In the middle of writing those songs and learning how to make commercially viable music, I was working on my songs. It would be like I go to school at 8 a.m., go all the way to South Bronx sometimes, come back. It'd be, 4. I also taught after school after that to make more money. I was buying shit in my studio to get a better mic. Got the Neumann TLM 103. I still use that shit to this day. I got my KRK monitors. I got my iMac. I was set. I'm coming home. I'm tired. I take a nap. Evening time to work. I'm working on my career. I work on that till 4 a.m. Somewhere in there, I'm doing a little schoolhouse rock song. Somewhere in there. But I'm like legit, I'm faded. I'm like, I got my Rossi wine in me. I got my little backwoods in me. And I'm making algebra songs. and I timed it. I'm like, they're not gonna take too much of my life, so I'm gonna be really efficient. So I'd make songs like 1 to 2 hours. I didn't realize I was training myself to be a professional, and I'm learning from the top people in the game. Then I started studying this dude named Jeremiah, and I heard how he was singing, and it reminded me of West African singers, because he'd sing really high and through his nose. After I studied Jeremiah, I was like, I want to sing like that. And I tried to sing, and it was that moment that I had written down these like song concepts in my notes. And one of the song concepts was called Classic Boy. And I was like, Classic Boy, that's kind of lame. And the way for any songwriter out there, the way I write songs is I have a bunch of song concepts, and I throw it I like paint it onto the computer. I record, like if you have like Classic Boy, I could sing it, I'm a classic boy, I'm a classic boy. Or I could be like, I'm a classic boy. But I didn't like how it sounded, and I changed it to Classic Man. And I was like, you know what? I want to make an anthem for all these people on my block, the ex-Vietnam vets, the barbershop, Jose's barbershop right there on Corteliu, all the custodians, all the people in the New York transit system. They wake up and they put their uniform on. And I wrote this melody, or sang this melody, I'm a classic man. I didn't have the second line. Whipper Wiley wrote that. It was, you could be mean when was it? I'm kidding. I'm just saying that because I didn't write it.
No,
I didn't write it. I'm joking. You can be mean when you can be this clean.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Jesus.
that one.
Now you believe me though.
Right.
You can tell I didn't write that shit. I remember it every time because I write most of my shit, and I was like, she had that line. I'm like, that shit fire as fuck. So I finished class, or I took Classic Man to Atlanta. I was going on a flight the next day to go to Wonderland.
Just to hang out.
Janelle has said, like, yo, let's like put in work to actually jam together. I believe in you as an artist. Let's make Wonderland like a real tribe where all the artists are putting out music.
So quickly, sidebar, where was she at this point?
She was based in Atlanta.
I mean, not physically, like in her
career. She had, y'all remember when Santi Gold was popping? Like, you remember that? Like, she had gotten to a place, and there was MIA and then Santi Gold, who used to be called Santo Gold. Then Janelle was kind of like bubbling a little bit, but she was so alt and avant-garde that in this day and age, it would have taken her 2 seconds. But at that time, black people were still figuring out, like what do we do with these people? And she was taking off in the vein of Outkast or whatnot. So she was bubbling, but she wasn't like obviously anywhere near where she is now. Yeah. So but she had like, people knew some of her, a lot. Tightrope I think was out. So she was collabing. I think she had just made Queen with Erykah Badu. So she was like starting to get that like recognition and that blue check status.
Not blue check.
I know.
Okay, so at this point you're like recording at your house, you're teaching the kids, no one knows you. You've got Classic Man as a concept, you fly to Atlanta. Yeah,
and I fly to Atlanta. Janelle and Nate Wonder and Chuck Lightning flew me out, let me be clear. I did not have the money to fly to Atlanta.
Cool.
I landed in Atlanta with Nana Kwabena, and I think Whipper Wiley was probably on that flight as well. And Nana is my longtime collaborator, Whipper Wiley, longtime creative director. Nana's executive produced everything I work on. And so he's one of my guys from UPenn, where I was in my whole phase. So just to orient everybody. Nana and we get on that flight. I share him the song on the plane. And he's in his, like, this is before AirPods, so he got the little white headphones that get tangled, and you remember that shit?
I still use it.
Oh my God, I hate those headphones. So he's untangling them, listening on the flight. He's like, yo, this shit hard, this might go. I land, we play it for Nate Wonder, one of the founders of Wonderland. Nate hears it, he's like, oh man, oh hell nah, you know how you be. And he's like, let's work on it now. So we immediately start working on it. Nate works on it, Nunna works on it, Roman John Arthur works on it. He ends up getting featured on the song. He's also one of the co-producers and the lead producer of Me, You, and God, which we just put out last month or the month before. And everybody works on it. Josh Dean, Whipple Wiley, Kateri, all our whole crew. Janelle comes in, she's like, oh shit, this is amazing. And we write some of the lyrics together. If somebody got an idea, they throw it at it. And we felt like it was gonna be a big ass record. And obviously it was, but the in-between time between when it was and when it wasn't, we tried a few things out. We created a focus group where we brought people from our core demographic to a room and they listened to the music. Like it was like 18 to 25 was what we thought at the time. And they would listen to the music and they would select between songs. And so many times they selected Classic Man.
That song.
Yeah, at the same time I'm teaching and I'm wearing the suits. I got better at my late 1800s suit game. And the kids is making fun of me, but they also think it's cool.
That's dope.
Yeah, and that was the I'll never forget. Like if you can be absurd and cool at the same time, you win. If you can be simple and special at the same time, you win. And I remember on my block, it was a Crip block. They didn't really run things, but they thought they did. They would come outside and be like, oh, there go the Willy Wonka of the hood right there. And then I go to school and I'm like, look at this Colonel Sanders ass nigga coming to teach. All right, Mr. Chief. And all that clowning was, I knew what people's tweets were gonna be. And then the more educated one were like, is that respectability politics? Like all that was happening in the school. So I was getting free marketing classes right then and there, plus our focus groups at Wonderland. That was huge for me. Then we're like, yo, let's go perform our songs in front of an audience. And our good friends had started this party at the DL, Delancey and Essex in New York, and that party is called Everyday People.
Yeah.
So I know you were, Sean.
Yeah.
So Everyday People has just started.
Yeah.
These are our friends. Like, so they're like, yo, we got this little party, you wanna perform? And we're like, sure.
Yeah.
We performed it. When Classic Man went on, it was within 2 seconds of me saying, nobody knew the song. They were all vibing with it, cheering, and we knew it was a hit.
Okay. So at that point you knew it was a hit, but did you have access? I mean, through Janelle, I don't know where Janelle was.
Janelle was
like in terms of, she was like, you said she was bubbling. Was she signed?
I think by now Diddy has certified her in terms of, like, you know how the industry works. Like, he had given his stamp of approval and a lot of support, and he's still a great supporter and advocate to this day. There were other people, Outkast, Big Boy, of course. So she has the right names.
Right.
She's still, left of center in terms of her art. She's not going to compromise. She's still that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's a pure, genuine artist, the way Bowie and Prince were. So she's doing her thing, and she has enough pull at this time to walk into a door and be like, listen to these people.
To this person.
And so she single-handedly, alongside Wonderland, of course, but her as a person, energy and presence and influence, she brought us into all these labels, and we shopped to every label that there was. And L.A. Reid at the time was in the studio, and he had that look on his face. He had that look like he knew it was something big was brewing. And he tried to make a deal right then and there that day with Janelle and with the crew. Like, he was like, nah, we need to do this right now. And that's why at the time we went with L.A. Reid and Epic Records.
Okay. So then that was the beginning. That was like your breakthrough moment.
I had negative $111 in my account. An auspicious number, minus the negative. I jumped a turnstile to get on the train to go to JFK to fly to Atlanta, because I was that broke.
Right.
When I got to Atlanta, I signed a contract that would then give me $125,000. I don't want to say like that's how it works, because it's not how it works for everybody.
Yeah, but
But it was a big deal. Yeah. And then I had to figure out what to do with the $125,000.
Okay, so then, cool. Classic Man comes out, your Classic Man. And now it's in the world, and that must have come with a whole bunch of, fame, exposure, blah, 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 blah. How did you navigate that transition, right? You went from negative 11, how much?
Negative 111.
Negative $111 to having money in the bank, to people knowing your name, to having to navigate this exposure, to having to protect your energy, right? Was it like overnight? Did it take time? And in those contexts, like how did you navigate being yourself in the world with that change, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people ask for this. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to be famous. I want people to know me. But they don't have a real concept of what that comes with. It's a burden in a lot of ways. It seems glamorous, but like it can also be tricky.
Yeah.
So how would you say you wore that jacket?
I wore a mask, which is what you do to protect yourself, you know? I had a really well-designed mask. Not to say it's dishonest. A mask can reveal yourself too. In ancient societies, that's what the whole face paint was for. Modern masks conceal, an ancient mask reveal. You're wearing that mask to show a part of yourself and take a part of your soul and your ego and put it out there. So I was doing that. My mask was like, it was a character version of me at the time. Not saying like I was a caricature per se, but I know I looked like one. But it was a version of me. I remember Dave Chappelle saying, you can't sell every part of you when you're in show business. Don't sell every part of you. Just pick what you're gonna sell and leave the rest for your private self. I don't think that day and age is here anymore, but that was, at the time, that was what Chappelle was saying, and I think we've changed a lot. But I remember that. So I wore that mask, and I guarded myself because I am, at my core, shy and introverted. I've just learned this as a skill. So that was one. I think another important notion is that all of you want to be seen and appreciated. Fame is it's like a scaled version of your desire to be seen and appreciated. That's why we're in relationships. I'm in a lovely relationship now. I feel seen. I feel great. I don't feel like I gotta wear a mask in the way I did before because I'm seen and appreciated. We want that in business when you're trying to negotiate for a raise or a better contract. Fame is a souped up form of that. And I wanted it because I wanted power and influence so I could be able to lay out this grand plan that I've been concocting for years for the betterment of black people and women globally. Since college, I've been writing down this thing called 100-year plan, which was every decade of this century, there was a target and focus for oppressed people, but particularly people of African descent. And so I wanted to be as famous as I could be, as fast as I could be. So I wrote down how to do that. I wrote down a Google Doc, I still have it. I will feature Kendrick Lamar. I will get to know the President of the United States. I will work with Wonderland and make pop records. That was the plan, to be as visible as possible, as fast as possible.
And how much of that did you do?
100%. When I got on Sway and like Breakfast Club, they'd ask like, yo, did you imagine this? What is it like? It feels like overnight success. And I was like, yeah, I definitely imagine this. I imagine this very moment. I imagine how I'm talking to you in this interview.
So would you say that that's like a key ingredient?
No, not for everybody.
What was the key ingredient for you then?
Vision. It was for me. Okay. Yes. I just don't think that's the same for everybody. Some people bump into success. They just stumble into it. I admire those people. Some people take it with so much grace. I didn't. I couldn't follow Classic Man as fast as I wanted to. It was kind of a trick. It was a ruse. Janelle and I don't make like dead center music. We never have. We were doing a trick. Our first project together was called Ephus, which is a change-up pitch in baseball. After you throw a few fastballs and curveballs and they know what your patterns are, you throw an Ephus pitch. The Ephus pitch is wobbly. It moves like this. And they can't hit it because it's slow. And that's what our first compilation was called. It was called Ephus. So after Yoga hit, after Classic Man, we was like, damn, okay, shit, we got to do that song again? That's what you want? We can't do that shit. So that the next few years was tough for me. But then I remember Kendrick had released, well, he had already released it, but To Pimp a Butterfly was the second like big project. And I thought, man, that's so courageous of him to make a record that's like jazzy and more influenced by old school hip hop. I didn't, at the time it was like Drake and him. And I admired that Kendrick just went in a direction that was true to his heart. So I started making music that was more African influenced. I wanted to make the first song on the radio that had pidgin, a little inkling of pidgin English. I wanted to make songs that were in between dancehall and Afro beats because I knew that would build a bridge. And I wanted people to see me traveling through Africa and see me in nice sections of Africa and show the luxury of Africa because people didn't know about that.
85.
Yes. So that led me to 85.
Right. Okay. So looking back at your journey, right? It's taken a lot of twists and turns. What would you do differently? Like,
man,
is there anything you would do differently? Is there anything you would do differently?
I have a lot of regrets.
Oh, okay.
I every day I'm trying to recycle my regrets because every time I try to throw them out, they just end up right back in the trash. I'm trying to recycle my regrets.
Someone once said to me, life is lived forwards and understood backwards. And once you get that, a regret is no longer a regret, but a lesson.
That's a bar.
And I think that saved me from a lot of regrets, so.
Oh, I need to heed that advice.
Yeah.
When people are like, there's only learning lessons, I'm like, nah, fuck that. It was a mistake. I fucked up. No, let's call it what it is.
But you can only understand that in retrospect.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I
mean,
mean,
can only move forward and look back and know what you know what I mean? That's wisdom. That's actually wisdom.
It is. I do feel better now. Like, I feel the greatest I've ever felt. I feel healthy. I don't have those weird, like, psychological markers, the very morbid, suicidal. Like, I've thought about dying in the last few years, but it wasn't as drastic and it wasn't suicide. I think millennials have this existential angst where some days we're just like, man, it'd be easier to just like die. Yeah, I don't want to kill myself. Whoa. I just want to die. That's been the last 3 years. Like, whoa. It's easy there. That was my college years, kid. So,
but
it's true.
No, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of circled back to it. What brought you out of your dark places? Because creative pursuit is hard. It's hard. We reach roadblocks, we reach a lot of self-doubt, we have a lot of imposter syndrome. We hit spaces where it's just like, fuck, sorry. What am I doing? Right? What am I doing? How am I getting there? Am I ever gonna get there? How could I be so audacious to think I could ever? And we might not always be where we want to be, but we're far from where we came from. And so I think just a moment of reflection around what got you over those hurdles. What gave you the mental strength and conviction to keep going? I know we've talked about pivotal turning points, right? Your father, there were certain things, but we reach them all the time.
Yeah.
In the flows of life, right? We were talking about existential crisis.
Yeah, I've been. I know.
And I relate. So, what would I say in South Africa? We have a word called chutzpah. What gives you a chutzpah?
What gives me a chutzpah?
Like your gumption.
Clarity is peace for me. That's the way I'm wired. Like knowing what I want. It seems so like simple, but most of you out there probably don't really know what you want right now. You think you know, but you haven't like given it enough space to really think about what you want. And be so honest with what your lowest self wants. Your highest self always tells you what it wants to be, but your lowest self tells you what it wants. So you have to make sure when you're writing down what you desire, that you're honest about what you want. All of you. Your higher self isn't your better self. Don't let this little granola wellness culture to steer you wrong. Be whole. Your whole self is your complete self, and it includes the lowest of the low, your primal carnal desires that are your God-given right as a human. So for me, it's always been, in every moment I realized it was clarifying what I wanted. I was lost in college. I needed to go away. Usually travel gets me out of, even if it's like just go to another part of LA that you've never, like if you've never been in the Valley, which I hope you have, but if you that like, you know, bougie, go to the Valley, ride a horse for a second. That might give you some perspective. And then when you come back, write down what you want. And once you really hone in on that, it's not as hard as you thought it was. You don't need to know how, you just need to know where. That building is still there. It's harder to see now. But some of you can still see it. And those of you who can't, we just gotta get a little closer. And if we just trust that we're gonna get there, we don't need to know how. And that's for me always been the thing. Like this year, this first 6 months, I put out an album, probably my worst rollout ever. Most of you probably haven't heard it. You didn't even know I dropped the album. Thanks for those of you that did. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I know I'm hard on myself and others. But I say this to say, halfway through rollout, I didn't even want to do it. I love this album. Oh my God, it's built with so much love. But I didn't feel like it because I didn't know what I wanted out of this year. I didn't know what I was passionate about. And I went to the ocean. I took some mushroom chocolates. I asked the ocean and life, like, why am I not myself? I usually speak with so much conviction. I'm out here like questioning things. Where's my certainty? Is that not what makes you masculine? Literally, that's the kind, you're telling yourself that without using those words. Isn't that what makes a man? You take what you want, bro. So I'm hard, my head is just talking to myself. So I go, I'm like, man, fuck all that shit. I need to just clear out. I go, and as the ocean is swaying, what comes to me is, where are you happiest in LA? Where are you happiest when you're in LA? And I responded, when I'm on the coast or when I'm in downtown LA, because it reminds me of New York, and I love New York and I miss it, but it grounds me, gives me some zen. Because people are interested in what you have to say in New York and not just how you look. So I moved to downtown LA. Just got a loft with my lovely lady, wherever you are, baby.
Right there.
Hey. And we have been ecstatic ever since. And I've been so open, I got ideas. I'm gonna do my rollout again. It's not too late. And I'm going on tour, I can't say with who. And I apologize to some of the fans. I know I've been MIA. I needed some time away from social media. I also needed time to work with this particular artist who's bringing me on tour. But next week we're announcing it. I'm going on tour with them, and it's all gonna make sense. So I apologize, but soon come. That is what I did. I changed my environment. Travel, I guess, is the other thing I'm realizing as I'm talking to you. Travel and then clarity. Everything else falls into place. But you gotta get out of whatever you're doing. If you do what you always done, you'll get what you always got. So don't do what you always done. There's some break in the circuitry, some pattern that you can just change and just do it dramatically, radically, and that'll get you into a new thought pattern.
And that's a key.
That is. I think.
Just for anyone.
I think for that part, I'd say for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, guys, this was juicy. I really enjoyed it. We're almost at our time, so I don't want to take us down another road, but I want to just say thank you. Thank you for being really open and honest and vulnerable and sharing with us and gracious and kind and warm.
Thank you.
As you always are.
Thanks for giving me the platform and the moment.
Yeah.
And an hour plus to talk about myself. Everybody wants to.
Thank you.
It's fucking great.
For letting
my spirit and my ego needed this, man. For real, man. I'll be hard on myself, so I've been needing it. Thank y'all.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming and listening and being such wonderful guests and giving us your time and your attention. So yeah, there will be music downstairs. If you want to grab a drink, vibe out. We got questions. Ooh, okay. Let's give it for a few more minutes. We actually got some time for some questions.
Yeah, questions and statements.
Okay, it came from that side, so yes.
I want to say the first statement. First off, I think you are such a phenomenal person. I've known you for a while now, and ever since the first time I've ever met you, you've been such a light. You're so embracing. You're so loving. You're so understanding. And what I love about you is that you see. What I love about you is that you see people, and I feel like we live in a world where people see people depending on who they are. You just see people. The statement that I want to make, and I want to make this clear. Do you have the camera? Is it on me? It's on you. But what my understanding is, like, I remember growing up in the early 2000s, everybody was on like this whole like reggae kick. You know, we had like Beanie Man, Elephant Man, Box Cartel, the list goes on. And then it was like a break, a massive break. Everybody thought they were Jamaican in New York. Everyone did. Yeah. And it was a massive break. Now, no offense, even though, you know, we are African Americans, we all come from Africa, we were all brought against our will, that's another conversation. There is this thing now, you know, we're in Afro beats, everything is like African infused. Jidenna was one of the first people to ever bring that. Ever.
Say that.
You know, like literally when I really think about it, like before, like you coming in with like this twang of like this like Afro fusion of nothing that is in current time, you're the first person to ever do that in America, ever. So give yourself a pat on the back. I said it out of my mouth.
Oh man, thank you, bro. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, Sean. Man, I love you.
Actually, we do have time for a few more questions.
Yeah, make it like that. Do it like that, please.
If anybody from the floor wants to ask. Okay, there's one right here.
Well, I just have a statement. It's been awesome watching your musical journey throughout the whole entire 3 albums that you've released publicly. For me, it's gotten me through a lot. My family, we play at parties nonstop. My goddaughter's name is Bambi.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
She's so precious. But, like, your music has been so inspiring through generations. And just to watch your evolution, it's been amazing. So I know you're hard on yourself, but your fans out here, like, just hear our voices because we're here for you. We're here for it.
Oh, thank you. Mashallah.
Keep it coming.
I appreciate that. Thank y'all. Oh, man, I appreciate you.
I got some back there. Shelly.
Thank you so much for this. My question is, you're so intentional and your thought is so holistic. Can you talk about the impact that you'd like to have globally? Because to me, it's been evident this whole talk how much will leaders
Thank you. I appreciate you, Shelly. When I went to Nigeria on that year off, I watched this fella interview when he was like, the only reason I make music, only reason I make music, man, is so I can speak. If I was speaking without music, nobody would listen. That resonated with me. The only reason I'm here is because I make music. But there's other things I do, just like there was other things that fella stood for. I really care about raising the standard of living for people of African descent. That's my heritage, so that's what I care about. It's not the only people I care about, but that's what I feel like I can represent. So Black Americans here, Caribbean Americans, the whole diaspora, the people on the continent. I really care about raising the standard of living for women worldwide. I feel like it's important that as we build all bridges, especially a bridge from here to Africa, it's got to be safe for women, it's got to be safe for queer people, it's got to be safe for every single type of person to walk on that bridge. And so what I've always wanted to do is, number one of the phases of the 100-year plan was to build the beginning of the bridge between Black people here and Africa. So thank you, Sean, for recognizing the work that we did musically, and we also did work in terms of bringing people to Ghana. I was with Bazoma St. John, Boris Kujo. Like, we planned that years before. We brought people. Bose was like instrumental in this, in bringing people to Ghana every year. It was like 20 people, then 50, then 100, then 1 million. Mm-hmm. We orchestrated that. I know now it looks like, oh, people are just doing it, it's so cool. Ghana, yeah. But it was a plan. It was a design. We met with the president of Ghana before this happened. So that was phase one. But as I've traveled in Africa, I've been to 11 countries. I've met with the heads of states of several, and it's become very apparent that we have some other work to do. And what I care about doing is focusing on creating what I call arteries or bloodlines that will be the biggest thing or the biggest way to change our standard of living as efficiently as possible. And another way to say that is like, or a tangible example is, in West Africa, there's a lot of people that would need their food to be transferred from point A to point B. There's farmers that need to carry their food elsewhere. There's people in the village that are shipping their food. Well, they don't need help feeding themselves as like US aid would have you. All they need are better roads. Black churches contribute to so much of African assistance, if you will, with missionaries and whatnot, but it's often to HIV and it's often to like disease. What if Black churches gave to roads? How would that change the shape of Africa? These are the kind of questions that late at night I'm plagued by. How do we instantly change our standard of living? And this goes across the continent and here as well, because I do believe that once we have one successful Black nation globally heralded, then it'll be a domino effect, and that we can walk with pride anywhere we are on the planet. So my goal is to be the whisperer between the heads of state in Africa, the whisperer between the influential people here, who are celebrity or non-celebrity, and be the guy that can be a spider weaving a web, so that within 40 years we're going to see a different generation of kids that automatically feel their dignity, their divinity, travel to Africa and back, starting their own programs, starting their own businesses, and not just in beauty, but expanding what our black market, a legal black market, looks like. That's my long-winded response to what I want to do. But everywhere I go, I see a new issue. When I was in Uganda, I was on the radio reminding some of the people on the radio of the Ugandan history. Uganda had an openly gay king. He was a king in the late 1800s. He had a husband and he had wives. We don't know if those wives were for sure, romantic wives, or they were a status symbol. But this is also the country now that strictly punishes anybody who's found out to be gay by death. Ironically, he was the last king before the British took over. It was under British rule that homosexuality became illegal in the early 1900s. One of the common misperceptions when you roll around Africa is that homosexuality comes from Europe and white people. And when I was on the radio, they were saying that I was Western. And they were talking about my mom being white and that I was bringing these ideas from the West. Mind you, the same people saying that had an iPhone and a Bible in their backpack. They had forgotten that their history was actually one of a variety of what we modernly would call queer beliefs, perspectives, and lifestyles. Their last king was that. And now they have, not only to me, and I'm not trying to make this about Uganda, but I'm really making a larger point of we don't really know our history and we forget. So if there's anything I do, even if I don't achieve my goal, I want to just remind us of our divinity and of our true history, and not what like they're gonna say on 125th Street, no shade, but a lot of the black organizations that go around from 125th to Lemert, they're not necessarily sharing the history I'm talking about. There's a deep and rich history that I hope that in sharing it, we will change the way that we move globally. That's all I hope for, minimally. And on a large level, I want to be the horse whisperer between all the great and influential people of color, black people globally.
Thank you.
So I just want to say thank you for sharing with us, especially your teachings. I think you kind of lead with teaching, and I think this conversation has kind of taught me a lot. I don't know what I expected when I came, but yeah, like you definitely touched my soul. I almost cried like 3 times.
Oh man.
Nosy almost cried too. It's been an emotional roller coaster. Sorry. I'm not gonna cry. Okay. My question is, seeing as teaching has been part of your history and life, how do you envision continuing that process? I think you do it in your music, which is obvious in the way that you write your music and put out your music. But how do you intend on continuing teaching and as part of your journey of this global journey and idea that you have?
First of all, thank you for just sharing your experience with my experience. I appreciate that. Joy is most intense when it's shared, so thank you. How do I want to, the reason why this happened is because I was consulting Nosy for the path to acting. I really want to delve into acting. I'm writing a book. These are the standard ways that musicians usually expand. Those are cool, but I really, I want to throw parties for the heads of state in Africa. I know it sounds funny, but I want to be the guy that throws the parties. That's what I've been dreaming of. I think that that's how I'll expand my teaching. I don't really think of teaching to just groups. I think of just like, how do I connect with this individual and in a way manipulate them. I'm a very good manipulator, and that's part of my darkness. It's taken me years to move away from manipulating my lovers and manipulating women, because that's what I was raised to do as I was socialized as a boy. I'm now in a place where I feel like I have my darkness and I hold it by the saddle as opposed to be ridden by it or, being the horse. I'm the rider. So how I propose to teach, man, it's not even teaching. I propose to manipulate the right people so that we can change our destiny. Because right now, we don't know where we're going. That's wild. Not just you as an individual, but every civilization before us had an idea of where they were going. You can always tell by the tallest building in the civilization. In older Europe, the tallest, in medieval times, it was the church. And people thought they were going to heaven if they did right. If you go all the way back to Egypt or to the Mayan and Inca empires, the tallest building was a temple in which they buried their most prestigious and godly people. And for them, the destination was eternity. Our tallest buildings are banks. It's not a destination, but it is right now in capitalism. So I'm afraid, because we as a people, especially black people, brown people, we're all following on this path right now, and we're actually on this Titanic ship, and I don't think we have to be on it if we do things right. Like, we don't have to be here. I believe in us. AI is scary. Climate change is scary. Your jobs are going away, whatever you do. We have an opportunity here to change how we approach everything. Maybe it's taking more naps. Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey. Maybe that's a form of resistance. Maybe hanging out and having fireside chats more, and focusing on intimacy, working less, making sure that when we work that we are compensated. Shout out to everybody who's been on the front lines with SAG. Thank you. I'll leave that there. I think all in all, because I talk forever and I can see you just kind of brought your mic stand a little closer, which means time is probably up.
Time is up.
But thank you so much. I appreciate y'all for listening and sharing.
But yes, we do have to wrap. I'm so sorry for anybody that didn't get their questions in. But yeah, we're here with
Grammy nominated.
Grammy nominated, almost
got it, folks.
For our long story long fireside chat, I plan on this being a monthly programmed event as we deep dive with different people in different career fields. It won't always be artists. It'll be a range of professionals as we take a journey on their career trajectories and how they navigated it. And hopefully you walk away with some insight, with some tools, with some lessons, with some inspiration. That's really what inspired me to put this together, so that we can get, deeper than just our highlight reels, honestly.
You succeeded.
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
So thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate you.
Everybody give Nosy a round of applause.